The Valari homeworld glimmered like a jewel in the dark of space. Its oceans shimmered with green and blue lights, and its cities floated on vast platforms above the surface. Everything looked calm, almost peaceful. But underneath that calm, terror had grown. The Rahl swarm had come. Entire regions of the planet had already fallen. The swarm moved quickly, leaving destruction wherever it went. Buildings were crushed, forests burned, and millions of Valari had fled underground to survive. The leaders of the planet knew they could not fight the Rahl swarm alone. Tevrin Sol, a young but respected diplomat of the Valari, moved quickly through the halls of the council tower. His skin was pale, his eyes bright with worry. Reports had arrived only moments before. Another city had been destroyed, and the swarm was now moving closer to the capital. He stopped at the communications room, where a team of technicians worked tirelessly. "Prepare the message," Tevrin said, his voice steady but firm. "We do not have much time. We must ask for aid. Whoever receives it must come quickly." The technicians nodded, their antennas twitching nervously. They knew the importance of the message. It had to reach someone who could save their people. The Valari had never sent a call for help to anyone outside their sector of space before. Their species was proud and self-reliant, but now, survival mattered more than pride. Tevrin stood over the console, watching the message being prepared. It was simple. The Valari were under attack, their planet in danger, and they requested immediate assistance from any capable species. There was no time to wait for replies from neighboring civilizations, many of which were far away or already too weak to help. "Message ready," said one of the technicians, a female named Lyra. "We can send it now." Tevrin took a deep breath. "Do it. Send it to every sector. Someone must answer." A bright pulse shot out into space, carrying the Valari plea across thousands of light years. Tevrin watched it leave, hoping with everything he had that someone, anyone, would come. Far away from the Valari, on a planet called Earth, the message reached its destination. Earth was not known to most species as a powerful or advanced civilization. Many in the galaxy thought of humans as primitive, unorganized, or dangerous only to themselves. But humans had something else, something most species could not understand. They were survivors. On Earth, the Deep Space Federation operated quietly in orbit. Its fleet was small compared to the great empires of the galaxy. But the humans who served on it were skilled, tough, and willing to take risks that others would never consider. The incoming message reached the monitoring station aboard the command ship ESF Horizon. The officers were busy, checking systems, plotting courses, and reviewing reports, but the alert caught their attention immediately. Captain Laura Grant stood at the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the railing. She was tall, her dark hair tied back, and her eyes sharp with focus. She read the message on the screen, her brow furrowed. "Galactic distress call," she said. "A civilization under attack. They are asking for help." Lieutenant Ryan Cole, the ship's pilot, leaned over the console. "Any idea who they are, Captain?" "They call themselves the Valari," Laura replied. "Unknown species, not listed in most records. But the message, it's urgent. They're facing a powerful enemy." Dr. Ethan Brooks, the ship's biologist, adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to the screen. "Look at this. Their planet is advanced, but they're terrified. Whatever is attacking them, it's not ordinary. The data shows massive destruction patterns." Laura nodded. "We don't get many calls like this. Most species in trouble stay isolated. But they sent a call for help across the galaxy. We can't ignore it." Ryan shook his head slightly. "Do we even know if they're friendly? We've heard stories about trick messages before. Could be a trap." Laura smiled faintly. "Sometimes, Ryan, helping others is the best way to survive. We'll take precautions. But we're going. We do not leave a civilization to die if we can help it." Preparations began immediately. The crew worked fast, loading supplies, checking weapons, and reviewing star charts. They did not know exactly what awaited them, But they were trained to adapt. Humans had survived against worse odds before, both on Earth and in space. Days later, the ESF Horizon left Earth orbit. Its engines glowed brightly, and the ship cut through space at incredible speed. The crew worked together, each focused on their role. Laura studied the data on the Valari, trying to understand their culture and needs. She wanted to ensure they could help in the most effective way possible. "Captain," Ryan said, pointing to a display, "their homeworld is in the Solon sector. Estimates show the swarm will reach the capital in less than 2 cycles. We need to get there fast." Laura nodded. "Increase speed to maximum. We can't afford delays." Laura. Meanwhile, on the Valari homeworld, Tevrin's soul paced nervously in the council tower. Days had passed since sending the message, and no help had arrived yet. Families hid in underground shelters, and the streets were empty. The swarm's presence was everywhere, a constant hum of fear and destruction. Lyra joined Tevrin, her antennas drooping. "Still no response, Ambassador." Perhaps the message did not reach anyone capable of helping. Tevrin clenched his fists. "No. Someone will come. They must. We cannot fight alone." Just as he spoke, sensors picked up distant ships entering the system. The Valari radar displayed unknown signatures, large and fast-moving. The fleet was unlike anything the Valari had ever seen. Sleek, metallic, but rough in design, the ships bore the marks of endurance rather than elegance. Tevrin and Lyra watched as the ships approached. "Could these be the reinforcements?" Lyra whispered. "They must be," Tevrin said. "But they look different from what we expected. We thought for certain an empire would answer us. Ships of shining crystal, weapons of light, fleets of thousands. But these are humans." The humans landed their ships near the capital without hesitation. Ground vehicles deployed rapidly, soldiers stepping out with precision and calm. Their armor looked heavy and practical. Not flashy, but every move suggested training and experience. Captain Laura Grant led the team. She walked confidently through the Valari city, observing the damage, but never showing fear. Dr. Brooks followed her, taking notes, analyzing the environment. Lieutenant Cole stayed at the perimeter, scanning for threats, ready to act instantly. Tevrin's soul approached cautiously. "You are not what we expected," he said. "We requested aid from the galaxy's strongest. We did not expect humans." Laura nodded. "You asked for help. You got it. We may not be the strongest in the galaxy, but we survive. That counts for something." The Valari were confused. Their entire history suggested that only advanced, highly developed species could intervene in a war of this scale. Humans, by appearance, did not fit that expectation. They were smaller in number. Their weapons looked basic, their ships rough. Yet their calm confidence was undeniable. Lyra whispered to Tevrin, "Do you think they can really fight the swarm?" Tevrin shook his head slightly. "I do not know. But if they fail, perhaps it will at least buy us time. And if they succeed, we will owe them our lives." The humans immediately began assessing the damage and the threat. Captain Grant organized teams to investigate the swarm's behavior, while Dr. Brooks collected samples of the alien organism. Fascinated by its rapid evolution, Lieutenant Cole coordinated with local Valari units, teaching them strategies for survival and defense that were unusual but effective. The Valari watched, astounded, as the humans adapted to the dangerous environment without hesitation. They moved through the ruined streets, using debris for cover, improvising defenses, and preparing weapons as if fighting in chaos was normal. To the Valari, it seemed reckless, but the humans executed every action with a strange, almost terrifying precision. That evening, as the sky darkened with fires from distant battles, Tevrin's soul stood on a high balcony, looking at the humans. They were not heroes of legend. Not shining warriors from distant empires. They were something different. They were survivors. Captain Grant and her team returned after the first survey of the area. She reported calmly, "The swarm is relentless, adaptive, and dangerous. But it has patterns, weak points. We can exploit them." The Velari were amazed. "You do not seem afraid," Tevrin said. "Even facing certain death." "You speak as if there is hope," Laura shrugged. "Fear does not help. Survival does. We focus on what we can do, not what we cannot." For the first time in weeks, Tevrin felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, with these humans, there was a chance. They had come to the Velari not as saviors in a grand, shining fleet, but as fighters hardened by a harsh world. The Deathworlders of Earth, as other species whispered in fear, were here. And if anyone could survive the coming storm, it would be them. The first night passed without further attack, giving the humans time to prepare and study the swarm. Dr. Brooks worked late into the night, examining alien tissue samples and discussing potential strategies with Velari scientists. Lieutenant Cole organized patrols, while Captain Grant studied battle simulations, planning the first engagement. Tevrin walked among his people, trying to reassure them. "They are humans," he said quietly. "I do not know why they came. But they came. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is enough." And far above, in the orbiting ships of the ESF horizon, Captain Laura Grant looked out at the glowing planet below. She did not know all the dangers that awaited them. She only knew one thing. The humans of Earth did not give up. And that might be the only thing that could save the Velari from the unstoppable Raal swarm. The sun of the Velari homeworld had barely risen when the first signs of the Raal swarm appeared again. From orbit, the humans could see the massive shapes of the swarm moving across the land, like black storms that crushed everything in their path. Buildings that had survived the first attacks were now in flames, and the ground shook with each movement of the swarm. Captain Laura Grant stood on the deck of the horizon, her eyes fixed on the chaos below. "They're faster than we expected," she said, "but speed alone does not make them invincible. We need to understand how they fight, how they move, and exploit it." Lieutenant Ryan Cole leaned over a console, tapping rapidly. "Sensors show they adapt quickly. When a weapon hits, they change direction, shift structure. They're like nothing I've ever seen before." Dr. Ethan Brooks looked over his shoulder, holding a small container of captured swarm tissue. "They evolve fast. Too fast. But they're still biological. We can study them, learn their weaknesses, and fight smarter than they can." The Velari scientists were amazed at the humans' calm. While they had spent their lives hiding from the swarm, humans seemed excited by the challenge. They worked quickly, analyzing samples, running simulations, and teaching the Velari strategies they had never considered. Tevrin's soul watched from the council tower as humans moved through the ruined city below. They did not hurry, but they did not hesitate. Each action had a purpose. They set up defensive positions using fallen debris, repaired damaged equipment in seconds, and even modified weapons on the spot to work better against the swarm. One Velari engineer, Nira, whispered to Tevrin, "Why do they not fear them? Even standing in the path of destruction, they seem calm." Tevrin shook his head. "I do not know. Perhaps it is not that they are not afraid, but that fear does not control them." By midday, the humans were ready. They had prepared weapons, mapped the terrain, and coordinated with the remaining Velari defense forces. Captain Grant called her team together. "We go in at first light," she said. "We test their response. We see how fast they adapt, where they are weakest. We do not retreat unless it is necessary. Survival is the goal, but we learn by acting. Understand?" Dr. Brooks and Lieutenant Cole nodded, while the Velari watched in awe. These humans were not like any other beings in the galaxy. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They acted, learned, and survived. The first engagement began at dawn. The Horizon's small fleet hovered above the city, while human ground teams moved between ruined buildings, setting traps and firing at the advancing swarm. The Raal creatures hit hard, tearing through walls, crushing vehicles, and swarming over anyone in their path. Lieutenant Cole piloted a small attack craft, swooping low between the swarm, dropping explosives precisely where they would cause the most damage. "They move too fast for standard strikes," he reported. "We need to think differently." Captain Grant smiled. "Then think differently. Use what you have. Adapt. That's what we do." Dr. Brooks was in the thick of it, observing the swarm as they attacked. He noticed patterns in their movement, subtle weaknesses in their formations. "They avoid direct hits to these joints," he called out. "If we target these areas, we can slow them down." Velari soldiers tried to follow the humans' instructions, but they struggled. Their methods were precise and careful. Relying on shields and structured formations, humans ignored shields, ran into danger deliberately, and set up traps where none seemed possible. They ran across open streets under fire, using the environment to protect themselves. "Why do they risk so much?" Nira whispered again. Tevrin Sol shook his head. "Because they survive differently than we do. On Earth, danger is everywhere. They learn to move in it, not avoid it." By the end of the first day, the swarm had been slowed. The humans had inflicted more damage than the Velari armies had managed in weeks. They had captured samples, learned movement patterns, and set up defenses that the swarm could not immediately overcome. That night, the humans gathered in the command center of the Horizon. Captain Grant laid out plans for the next day. "We learned a lot today," she said. "Tomorrow, we push further. We exploit what we discovered. They adapt fast, but we are faster if we think while we fight." Dr. Brooks nodded. "We can combine human strategy with Velari technology. Their energy shields are powerful, but they do not cover weaknesses we now know. If we strike in the right way, we can take them down efficiently." Lieutenant Cole added, "We also need to train the Velari to move differently. Their instincts are to hide, not to fight in chaos. We teach them to fight like survivors, not just soldiers." The next day, the humans implemented their new strategies. Ground teams moved in unpredictable patterns, attacking from multiple directions. Explosives were placed in ways the swarm could not anticipate. Captain Grant coordinated air support from the Horizon, striking with precision at the most dangerous clusters. The Velari were shocked. The humans seemed fearless, even when surrounded. They improvised weapons on the spot, built defenses in minutes, and never retreated. The Raal swarm adapted to their attacks, but every time it did, humans adapted faster. At one point, a massive swarm unit cornered a small group of humans. Dr. Brooks was ready to call for backup, but Captain Grant stayed calm. She assessed the situation quickly, then ordered her team to split and regroup behind debris. Within moments, the humans struck from hidden positions, hitting the swarm's weak points. The unit collapsed in chaos, and the humans emerged almost unharmed. Tevrin watched in disbelief. "They are winning through instinct and courage, not by power or technology," he whispered to Nira. "Yes," she replied. "It is terrifying and inspiring." As the battle continued, the humans began teaching Velari soldiers their methods. They trained them to move unpredictably, to improvise defenses, and to strike at weak points rather than fight head-on. Slowly, the Velari learned to survive differently. By the end of the second day, the Velari forces, now guided by humans, had pushed the swarm back further than anyone thought possible. Damage to the city was severe, but the people had hope for the first time in months. That evening, Tevrin Sol walked with Captain Grant through the ruined streets. "Why do you fight like this?" he asked. "You put yourselves in danger without fear." Laura looked at him calmly. "We do not ignore danger. We respect it. But we do not let it control us. Humans survive because we act, even when the odds are against us. Fear slows us down. Courage keeps us moving." Dr. Brooks added, "And we do not fight alone. We fight together, with whatever allies we can find. That is how survival works." Tevrin nodded slowly. "Your people, They are different from anyone I have known. Perhaps this is why you survived on Earth. Your world is harsh, and you learned to endure. Yes, Laura said. Earth is a death world. We grew up with danger, scarcity, and threats we could not always control. We learned to adapt, to survive, to improvise. That is why we can do this. Meanwhile, the swarm was evolving faster. By the third day, it had developed new strategies, changing its formations and targeting human weak points. But humans adapted again. Lieutenant Cole modified attack patterns mid-flight, using tricks learned from watching predators on Earth. Dr. Brooks tested new weapons, observing how the swarm reacted in real time. Captain Grant coordinated all efforts, keeping everyone safe and focused. The Valari were amazed at the humans' ability to adapt. They realized that strength was not just in advanced weapons or large fleets, but in the will to survive and the ability to think creatively in chaos. During a particularly dangerous encounter, a large swarm unit trapped human forces in a narrow canyon. Valari soldiers panicked, but Captain Grant remained calm. She surveyed the environment, noticing rocks above the swarm's path. She signaled, and within moments, humans had rigged the rocks to collapse onto the swarm. The rocks fell, crushing part of the unit, and the remaining creatures scattered. The Valari were speechless. "How did you think of that so quickly?" Nira asked. Laura smiled faintly. "We learned to use the environment. On Earth, everything can be a weapon. Everything can be a tool. You learn fast, or you die." By the end of the third day, the humans had not only slowed the swarm but had begun to turn the tide. They had taught the Valari to fight in new ways, to survive in ways they had never imagined. The bond between the two species grew stronger as they fought side by side. Tevrin's soul finally allowed himself to hope. For the first time, he believed that the Valari people might survive the Raal swarm, not because of great empires or shining weapons, but because humans had come, not as legends, but as survivors. That night, as the stars shone above the ruined planet, humans and Valari alike prepared for the battles to come. The swarm would not give up easily. But with humans at their side, the Valari now had a chance to survive, to fight, and to reclaim their world. And Captain Grant, standing with her crew, knew one thing for certain. Humans had survived worse than this, and they would survive this too. No matter what the galaxy threw at them, humans would endure. The Raal swarm was growing more aggressive. Every day, new units appeared, faster and stronger than before. Entire regions of the Valari homeworld had already fallen, and the swarm's hive mind seemed to anticipate every move. But humans did not retreat. They did not panic. They studied, adapted, and prepared for what was coming. Captain Laura Grant stood on the horizon's deck, looking at the approaching swarm from orbit. The ships moved in strange, organic patterns, shifting and twisting like living shadows. "They've learned from our last attacks," she said calmly. "But that only means we adapt faster. That's what we do." Lieutenant Ryan Cole ran simulations on the bridge, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. "They're targeting the same weak points we exploited before, Captain. They're evolving at an alarming rate. If we use the same tactics, they'll counter us in hours." Laura nodded. "Then we change everything. We combine human strategies with Valari technology. We attack differently, unpredictably. We force them to make mistakes." Dr. Ethan Brooks was examining a captured swarm unit in a secure containment area. "Their evolution is incredible. Each encounter changes them slightly. But they're still biological. That means there are limits. We just need to find them." Tevrin's soul watched from below, pacing nervously in the council tower. The Valari people were exhausted, afraid, and ready to give up hope. But seeing the humans prepared and calm gave them strength. Somehow, these strangers from Earth brought courage with them, the kind of courage that did not rely on perfect weapons or numbers. The humans organized the Valari into small units, teaching them to fight differently. "Do not hide," Laura told them. "Do not wait for the enemy. Move, adapt, strike. If you survive, you fight another day. If you die, nothing else matters. The first strike of the day began at dawn. The Horizon deployed its attack craft, swooping low through the ruined cities. Explosions lit the streets as humans set up ambushes, fired energy weapons, and used the terrain to their advantage. The swarm responded quickly, sending massive units to crush the attackers. Lieutenant Cole piloted his craft through the chaos, dodging attacks and dropping explosives with deadly precision. "They're learning, Captain," he said over the comms. "They're faster now, but we're faster in thinking." Captain Grant watched calmly. "Keep adapting. Don't fight the way they expect. Always force them to react." Dr. Brooks was on the ground with human squads, observing the swarm closely. He noticed a pattern in their movements. The largest units avoided certain types of terrain. Their joints were vulnerable, under pressure, and they reacted slower to environmental hazards. He relayed this to the soldiers, who used the information immediately. Valari soldiers watched in awe. They had fought the swarm for weeks and lost countless lives. Now, with humans, they saw hope. The humans did not have fancy shields or advanced weapons, yet they moved through the chaos like it was ordinary. They improvised traps from rubble, used debris as cover, and attacked weaknesses no one had noticed before. By midday, the humans had inflicted significant damage. Several swarm units had been destroyed, and the survivors retreated temporarily. But the swarm was relentless. More units poured in from different directions, larger and faster. Spreading fear among the Valari, Captain Grant called her team together. "We can't let them regroup. We need a final strike. Something decisive. We've seen how they move. We know their weaknesses. Now, we hit them where it hurts most." Dr. Brooks analyzed the data quickly. The swarm's hive nodes control the smaller units. If we destroy the hive nodes, the rest will panic and scatter. Lieutenant Cole looked at the map. "There's a nebula nearby, unstable and dangerous. If we lure the swarm into it and detonate the gases, it could destroy their entire force. But it's risky. It could destroy some of our ships too." Captain Grant's eyes narrowed. "Sometimes the risk is worth it. If we fail, they'll destroy the planet. If we succeed, we save millions." We go forward. The humans prepared their plan. Ground teams set traps and lured swarm units toward the nebula. The Horizon and other ships followed, firing at the nodes to weaken control. The swarm reacted, sensing danger, but humans forced it into the trap. The final battle began in the nebula's shadow. Explosions lit the clouds of gas, smoke, and debris. Humans and Valari soldiers fought side by side, attacking with precision. The swarm was huge and powerful, but it could not withstand the humans' unpredictable tactics and careful targeting. Lieutenant Cole piloted his craft through narrow tunnels in the nebula, dropping explosives at exactly the right moments. Dr. Brooks provided live analysis of the swarm's movements, calling out targets and vulnerabilities. Captain Grant coordinated every action, keeping the fleet in formation, while ensuring the humans on the ground were safe. The Valari were amazed. They had never seen such coordination, such bravery. Humans did not hesitate, even when surrounded. They improvised constantly, changing plans mid-battle, using the environment, their weapons, and even the swarm's own behavior against it. At one point, a massive swarm unit cornered a group of humans near a cliff. The Valari watched in fear, expecting them to die. But Captain Grant did not panic. She ordered her team to split, using the rocks and debris as cover. Within moments, they struck back, hitting the swarm's weak points. The unit collapsed, and humans emerged unscathed. Dr. Brooks smiled faintly. "They are not just soldiers," he said. "They are survivors. They fight differently, because they live differently." Tevrin's soul finally understood what he had seen from the first day humans arrived. The legends of Earth and its death world were true. These people had survived dangers far worse than any swarm. Their world had taught them to endure, to adapt, to improvise. And now, they brought those lessons to the Vellery homeworld. As the battle reached its peak, Captain Grant gave the order. The Horizon and the fleet fired at the nebula's unstable gases. The cloud erupted in a massive explosion, engulfing the swarm's hive units. Ships were rocked by the blast, but humans were ready. Protective measures had been set in place. The swarm shrieked as it was consumed by fire and energy. Thousands of units were destroyed instantly. Their hive mind disrupted, and the remaining creatures scattered across the planet. Ground teams pressed the advantage, attacking the remaining units and forcing them into retreat. By the end of the battle, the city was in ruins. But the swarm had been defeated. Humans and Vellery alike were exhausted, but alive. The Vellery could hardly believe what had happened. Their entire civilization had been on the brink of extinction. And now they had survived. Tevrin Sol approached Captain Grant. You saved us. Your people, your courage, your skill. We cannot thank you enough." Laura shook her head. "We did what had to be done. You asked for aid. We came. That is all. But you fought too. Your people learned to survive. That is what matters most." Dr. Brooks added, "It was a team effort. Humans adapted, but the Vellery contributed too. Together, we survived." Tevrin nodded slowly. "Your world. It is feared across the galaxy. But now we understand. Earth does not produce soldiers like any other species. Earth produces survivors who refuse to die." Captain Grant smiled faintly. "Survivors are what the galaxy needs sometimes. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but the ones who refuse to give up." As the sun set over the ruined city, humans and Vellery worked together to tend the wounded, repair equipment, and clear debris. The Vellery began rebuilding, and hope returned for the first time in months. Tevrin Sol stood among his people, watching humans move through the streets. They did not celebrate loudly or boast. They patched their own equipment, checked on each other, and prepared for whatever might come next. But in their quiet determination, the Vellery saw something stronger than any weapon: endurance. That night, the council tower glowed with lights from the rebuilding efforts. Tevrin Sol spoke to his leaders. "Humans, they are different from anything we imagined. Not just in strength, but in spirit. They taught us something more valuable than technology. They taught us survival." Nira, standing beside him, nodded. "And perhaps that is what will keep our civilization alive. Their presence, their courage, their example. It gives us hope." Captain Grant and her crew returned to the Horizon, preparing to leave orbit. The battle had been won, but the humans knew the galaxy was full of dangers, and survival was never guaranteed. Yet, they felt satisfaction. They had faced impossible odds and prevailed. Not through power alone, but through courage, adaptability, and determination. Before leaving, Captain Grant looked at Tevrin. "Your people will survive. You fought. You learned. And now you are stronger. Keep adapting. Keep surviving." Tevrin bowed slightly. "We will never forget what you have done for us. The Vellery owe Earth a debt beyond words. You came when we were hopeless, and you gave us a future." As the Horizon left the Vellery system, the humans looked back at the planet. It was scarred, battered, and still burning in places, but it had survived. And the galaxy would remember that day. Rumors began to spread in distant systems. A species from Earth had arrived where all hope seemed lost. They fought not like invincible warriors, but like survivors hardened by Deathworlds, and they brought hope to those who had none. Humans were not always the strongest or most advanced, but they refused to surrender, refused to die, and refused to leave anyone behind. And that made all the difference. In the quiet of space, Captain Grant turned to her crew. "We did our part. Now, we return home. But remember this: survival is not just about power. It is about courage, adaptability, and refusing to give up." The crew nodded, tired but proud. They had faced the impossible, and they had succeeded. The Deathworlders of Earth had come, and the galaxy would never forget them.